In today's world, people are more disconnected than ever. Anxiety, loneliness, and depression are rampant, and young people are desperate for meaningful relationships. From the beginning, Edge has created opportunities for people to develop in their personal, professional, and spiritual lives.
My relationship with my mentor is awesome. Shout out to Jason. He's there for me in terms of any questions I have, both professionally and personally. Earlier this year, my dad had COVID, and he was one of the first people to check in with me regarding that. So it's nice to know that he cares about me as a whole human being.
Edge continues to provide ways for you to develop as a whole person, to grow yourself, and to find your role in your community and make an impact. Edge offers a variety of programs and events to provide community and safe spaces for whole person development to occur. Edge groups, Edge work, and Edge events are our current product offerings, but we are always looking to expand as a way to better serve our community and to be able to positively impact more lives. We believe that people grow better together. We are all made for community. Once you have expressed interest in participating in an Edge group, we will pair you with 5 to 7 other young professionals and a carefully selected Edge-trained mentor. And together, you will navigate life, including personal growth, career development, and faith. Edge group participants commit to a 1-hour virtual gathering with their group every other week for 1 year. And because Edge Groups is a virtual program, you can experience the power of intergenerational mentoring from anywhere.
I'm Toni McEwen. I work for Corteva AgriScience, and I lead our global HR service centers. I do think I have the best Edge group because these women are constantly showing up for one another. So while I'm technically the mentor, there's a lot of moments where I sit back and I don't say a lot, and they just speak into each other's lives.
Edge at Work is a 1-year cohort-based program that focuses strictly on personal and professional development. Leveraging a curriculum that we co-created with Butler University, emerging leaders are provided a safe space to focus on their own personal and professional development. We focus on everything from mental wellness to overcoming failure and self-limiting behaviors to receiving feedback and managing change. Edge Events is where our entire community comes together. Events are the glue that bring folks from all of our programs together to share life, learn from each other, and address relevant topics within our lives and communities.
I struggled in my early 20s with figuring out you have to take ownership of your career and choices. And I think Edge really helped me gain clarity to make those choices.
I wanted to get involved because I frankly wish I would have had something like this 20 years ago when I started my career.
If you are a young person who is looking for deeper connection and community, Edge is for you. For those more seasoned, we are always in need of strong mentors. Your life experiences should be shared with others. If you are a business owner or executive and would like to provide a unique opportunity to your employees, Edge at Work would aid in their own personal and professional development journeys. Learn more about how we can partner with you at edgementoring.org.
My name is Casey Kraus, and I have the honor of serving as the Director of Products at Edge. This year marks my 4th EdgeX on staff and something that I look forward to all year. So today, I'm excited to introduce you to our next set of guests, Steven Curtis Chapman, alongside his wife Mary Beth and daughter Emily. Steven is the most awarded Christian music artist in history. The 5-time Grammy Award winner has had 49 #1 singles and has sold more than 11 million albums. Also, Steven and his wife Mary Beth started the nonprofit ministry called Show Hope after being transformed by the miracle of adoption in their own family. Their daughter, Emily, serves as the organization's executive director. To date, Show Hope has helped provide adoption aid grants for nearly 7,000 orphans from more than 60 countries. Today, you'll get to hear this family's incredible story behind it all, and we're certain that it will leave you inspired. Please welcome Steven, Mary Beth, and Emily as they sit down with Liz Henderson from the Edge team for this powerful conversation.
We're so excited to be with you guys today for EdgeX. Thank you so much for joining us, welcoming us to your space. As you know, our theme this year is look inward, focus outward, and go onward. And so our desire is to hear your story, your work, what you're doing, in hopes that it will touch and inspire those who are watching today.
Absolutely.
So, Steven, you have 49 number one radio hits, 5 Grammys, 59 Dove Awards, and the list goes on. So we know that music has captured your heart, but today we're going to talk about something that's captured your whole family's heart. We have been so inspired by the work of Show Hope, and we wanted to hear a little bit more about it. And so that's why we have all of you today.
Yes. The story is all
keeps on going.
Mostly here. But but I'm kind of a tag along, so I get to write the theme song. That's kind of my part of it. Yeah.
I love it. So this story began when you were 11 years old. So share with us a little bit about what happened.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you so much. We're excited for EdgeX conference. So when I was 11, I had the opportunity to travel with Mom to Haiti, and we went on a trip with Compassion International, and first time outside of the country and experiencing kind of the ramifications of pretty extreme poverty and trying to process that as an 11-year-old, having met a lot of children in similar age that were living outside of a lot of the comforts that we take for granted here, and I certainly was as a young kiddo. And so came home from that trip, began processing just what I had experienced on that trip. Was a good family friends of ours who we grew up with that were in the process of fostering kiddos here in Tennessee, as well as had welcomed a few children home through adoption. And so I was around that, grew up around that. This family was in a small group with Mom and Dad, so it was very much so part of my childhood and family friends and experiences I had. So processing Haiti along with families that I was seeing here in Tennessee that was stepping into the need, I began to pray and feel compelled that God had something for our family in caring for children that were vulnerable, and what that looked like. I wasn't positive at the time. I think, in fact, it started with trying to convince us to become missionaries and move overseas, but that didn't jive with career and such. So began asking Mom and Dad to consider bringing a child home from another country that needed a family.
Wow! And how old were your siblings at this time?
7 and 6 or something.
Well, yeah, 7 and 6.
So you were
so you had your hands full as a mom, and she's praying that you'll bring another child home.
Oh yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah, she she was praying. She was writing us notes. She had her brother sign contracts. Christmas list included, a sibling from another country or here in the U.S. I mean, it was just an ongoing barrage of. Really in hindsight, obviously in hindsight, it was a full-on campaign, and then in hindsight, just really, God was really working through her at a young age, which is quite remarkable and very fearful for me, just because, I had to kind of face my own, fear of stepping into that, and yet God just was really gentle, to just kind of bring me along and just confirm it in my own heart and know that it was the right thing to do. But
and make it very clear. I mean, it was one of the first things that I think for her and our experience together, it was, I think our prayer became, because it was obvious that something was going on in Emily's heart, and we, while wanting to certainly be open to whatever God was doing, and we had read James 1:27 in Scripture about true religion, how God defines it, care for orphans and widows, obviously a lot of different ways to respond to that Scripture, and we were convinced that our way of responding was to support families, and we had, I would sing at, crisis pregnancy, fundraisers and things like that, which is part of how we had gotten exposed to. I think Emily actually went to one of them with me and brought home armfuls of materials for her mom to read. Look here, Mom, there's a need in China, there's a need here, there's opportunity here. And, but I think, just feeling like, well, that's something you really have to be called to. God, if this is something that you have for our family, you have to make this like really clear, like, so obvious. And these really amazing, hilarious, I think we learned as much as we are have learned, continue to learn about who God is, God's character in this journey for us. I think I learned as much about just the amazing sense of humor, the winsomeness of God, which isn't something that I grew up thinking of God in those terms, but just how creative,
Just, yeah, how clear
God
he made
can
it.
be, the creator, imagine that. But yeah, the ways that he made this very obvious that he was directing our family. And he knew we would need that, especially this one, because she had so many fears going into that journey. That it was truly an amazing thing for us to watch unfold even before our own eyes.
What
Never
were-
imagined where it would lead us, but
Yeah, so you've adopted 3 girls. What were some of the ways that God made it so clear that you were supposed to adopt?
Well, I guess the obvious one would be Shohana, our oldest, and the first to come home from China. We took a day to drive around and just really pray about whether God would have adoption for us. We just wanted to kind of just separate from the kids who were very much, Mom and Dad, you need to do this. We've heard from the Lord. You need to do this. But I had gotten out of the car at a restaurant, and I said, this is just a little overwhelming, but we need to figure out. We don't know any of the Chinese language, but we need to figure out what laughter in Chinese, what the word for laughter is, because it's kind of like Sarah and Abraham. I just felt so old at whatever age, 30 something that I was at the time. But I just feel like we're just beyond having children, and yet we're laughing at the possibility. We need to find out what the word for laughter is, and that needs to be part of her name. And we'd always loved the name Hannah, which means gift of God's grace. So somehow maybe that could be part of it. And so that was just kind of mentioned, and on we went. And about an hour later, I had a doctor's appointment, and we were sitting in the waiting room, and Steve picked up a Reader's Digest that was about 8 months old, and it had a story about it had a mother and son on the cover that looked Asian, and he began to read the story, and he said, I think you should read this. So I began to read, and it just basically, well, it didn't basically, it literally said, and the little boy's name is Shohan, S-H-A-O, meaning laughter in Chinese, and we call him Shosho for short. And I'm like, well, I guess Shohana, it will be her name, and it means laughter, And so that was
definitely one of the
wild and winsomeness ways
Yeah.
that God confirmed that He was going to care for us, even in the kind of silliness part of it. But yet, it just became really clear. Steve used to tell the kids we were on the road to adoption, and that we could take a detour, and it might not end up that way. But if God as we continued to take steps, and God made it really clear at that step, then we were going to continue on, and then that ultimately led to us adopting Shoei. And then I thought that would be, the way we completed our family with a little girl from China. And I knew before we ever got back from China with Shohana that Stevie Joy would be joining. I just had a sense that, she would have a sister. And then Maria was a bit of a surprise. Stephen had gone back to China to do some music for a Luis Palau crusade, and he actually met Maria, who was being cared for in a foster situation. And so I was like, fell in love
called
with
her
the
and
picture,
said,
but I was
I
like,
know I'm not supposed
yeah,
to
'cause I said,
even
"No,
look
do
at
not
any more
do
little ones that need a home.
Yeah.
I was under strict orders, but I called and said, there's this little girl named
her name's
Maria.
Maria.
You just need to pray for Maria. She said, don't even think about it.
Yeah.
No. And I
But
said,
I
I
just
know,
made
but
it
just
so
pray
clear.
for her. And by the time I got home, I was on that trip alone, and I was about a week away. By the time I got home from that trip, Mary Beth had already had the paperwork sitting out on the kitchen counter. I remember walking in the house, setting my bags down and going, what is this? And she said, I think we're supposed to go get Maria. I've been praying about it and can't get it off my mind. And I had cried all the flight, all the way home, just praying for her and trying to figure out, why is this thing so heavy in my heart for this little girl? I mean, we met and spent time with and held and prayed for hundreds of little boys and girls, specifically in China, but why did this one grab my heart? So that was how Maria became part of us as well.
And how old was she when she became a part of your family?
Maria was
She
about
was
14
about
months,
14,
right?
15
She'd had
months
her
old.
first birthday. She was the oldest.
She was the oldest, and so when she came home, or she was the oldest at the time we adopted, and so Stevie, Joy, and Maria were just 6 or 7 months apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Emily, how was it adapting to 3 new sisters? That was 3 times what you ever prayed for.
3 times what I asked for. No, incredible. I'm so grateful and consider it one of my greatest honors to still be very actively involved as a sister. In fact, I was on the phone with Shoei yesterday, and Stevie, we passed each other driving today, and she called, and it's just sweet. But I can't believe there was definitely, I think, going back to that moment in time when we were praying and considering adopting, I sometimes tell even my husband, like, I wish my prayer life could be like it was when I was in 5th grade, because I think God really was beginning to stir something in our family's heart that was much bigger than our story. We wouldn't have been able to tell anybody that at that moment in time, but certainly something was going on below the surface that any one of us would have even been able to put our fingers on. And I think what God was doing was preparing the way for what would become Show Hope, and 6,800 children now that have been able to come home through the help of the work of Show Hope. And so it's beyond even just that experience within our family, but I'm really thankful for the way Mom and Dad shepherded us through that and continue to. Mom and Dad always phrase in telling people the story or even talking about adoption that it was an invitation from God to understand Him in a new and profound way, and that invitation doesn't have an expiration date. We continue to learn what it means to be a child of God as we become family with one another and are experiencing being the Chapmans in a really unique way. And especially in 2020, it's even presented more opportunity for incredible conversation and dialogue and growth and spiritual depth. And I'm just incredibly humbled that we have the opportunity to be a family in this way.
That's awesome. Talk to us about Maria. She was a little girl who made a big impact in your lives.
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about her. And we know you went through every family's worst tragedy with her passing away. And how has your family wrestled through that?
Well, shall I start and then you pick up? We have this great little picture hanging in our house that someone that captured the spirit of Maria in reading a story, and I think it was in the book that I wrote. Mary Beth has written a beautiful book about just her journey and life, but including our great loss of Maria, and a book called Choosing to See. And then I share kind of my story in a book, and someone read this story of Maria, and we had created a little something that we needed some way when Mary Beth and I were called away for something related to Show Hope or whatever to deal with the fact that Maria had a very strong. We bought the Strong-Willed Child book when we had Emily. We never cracked it open. We just got it in case, because the first time we'd never had a child, so we're like, oh, she must have a strong will. And we realized very quickly she just has a lot of passion, but she's certainly not a strong-willed child. We set it on the shelf, and then years later when Maria came, we got it out and said, okay, this is why they wrote that book, because now we have one. She was very, very, very strong, very passionate, very committed to her way of seeing things and doing things. And so we had developed this little system on our refrigerator door, and we had 3 ladybugs. Mary Beth brilliantly came up with this idea. I don't know if you just created it yourself or thought of it. Had 3 ladybugs, which a lot of people that have adoption stories related specifically to China know ladybugs are very significant. And so 3 little ladybugs that represented each of the girls: Shoei, Stevie, Joy, and Maria. We really only needed 1 ladybug, but it was so that she didn't feel singled out. We had 3 ladybugs, and each of them had 3 dots.
Yeah.
They each had 3 little dots that were Velcroed on. And so whenever they didn't obey or didn't do what they were supposed to do, 1 dot would be removed. Now, we had the kindest, most tender-hearted babysitter in the world, so she would always give. And Maria was the only one that ever lost dots. Although sometimes she would take dots from the others just so she didn't feel so bad. And then she would give her opportunities to earn the dots back. Because if all 3 dots were gone by the time we came home from whatever trip, then we had to deal with it. Because we had to come up with something.
Conversation with Maria.
We had to come up with something that would let her know, you've got to obey. away, the babies. So, needless to say, there were lots of times that Maria's dots were missing by the time we got home. And the babysitter was crying. And it was like, I tried, I feel so bad. And Maria was like, And so he captured this amazing picture of Maria and me holding her. And she's kind of going, and it has all the dots are on her shirt instead of on the lady. But anyway, it just kind of captures the story of this amazing a little girl who had so much passion.
But she could not keep her dots on her ladybug.
Yeah, she had the hardest time, but they're there now.
We glued them on.
Yeah, Mama super glued them on. When she went to be with Jesus, she was like, she ain't losing her dots anymore. Yeah. But she was an amazing, and her legacy continues to be an amazing part of our story and our family story, because we were able to, of course, the work of Show Hope, continued on, and in our work in China specifically, and an amazing legacy of a work that we have had the privilege of being a part of there with Maria's Big House of Hope. And so, it's been a very obviously unbearably hard part of our story, but also an incredible reminder to us that if what we believe, and the whole reason Show Hope began, is believing that the story of these children's lives is not over, but is really just beginning. That there is, as I put in a song not so long ago, a glorious unfolding story in each of our lives. And we really believe that and hold on to that and know that is true. With Maria's life, the impact, the work of Show Hope grew exponentially. In the loss of Maria, it put our work on an even more a larger platform for people to hear about and see and know about. That's hard. It's a lot of the way it is with the kingdom of God this side, looking through the dark glass that we're looking through. There's a lot of things that we'd still, even when we see that great work and the beauty, it's still hard because it represents pain.
Yeah, you were saying earlier that quote, or whoever said, could it be that sometimes God's perfect will is sometimes just that hard. And I think Maria used to say, and I know you remember this, I mean, she was just 5 when she went to be with Jesus, but she used to say all the time, I love it when my whole family's together. And but that's really even the work of Show Hope, is just, in the family business. And so it's really, really sweet to have that legacy, part of her story just continuing.
And is that her picture that you're wearing?
Yes. It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, we all have little parts of her kind of still reminders. Not that tattoos, we even have to have these, but it's always there. But tattoos, yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
So
in fact, Eiley the other day was like, "So when do I get my C tattoo?"
My C really? Your tattoo. Little girl? Oh,
yeah, so when? I'm like, well, 18 definitely, and there's, but yeah, it's.
Yeah. So she was a little girl that made a huge impact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
oh, I love that. Talk to us about what your dreams are for her legacy to carry on with Show Hope.
Well, I mean, I'll let you talk a little bit about kind of where we're headed. We just finished 10 years of serving children in China at a place called, what's the other picture that I have on? It's a place called Maria's Big House of Hope in China. That's a care center for children who have profound medical needs. And we had the great privilege of being able to partner with an organization there and care for, I think, over 2,800 kiddos receive life-giving medical care. And so as we transition now out of that with the complexities of working in a foreign country, in particular in China, we kind of have a blank slate in front of us. And most people who know the Chapmans know that there's always another idea, or another kind of dream or plan. And, one of the reasons we really kind of did a specific work in China was that our girls were from China, and how could we give back to a country that had blessed us so profoundly with our girls, which is, why we chose and built the work there in China. The adoption aid grants are for children from all over the world, which represent, I think, 63 countries now. 65 countries now. And so we are now kind of going, okay, how can we maybe this side of adoption, when kiddos are here in the U.S., whether they're from the U.S. or other countries, but once adoptions are finalized, how could we maybe step into this realm of helping with ongoing medical costs, like medical care grants, or working with hospital organizations that we could help offset some of the profound expense of some of these really complex medical needs these kiddos have. So we're dreaming and scheming, and Emily's kind of spearheading that, and so.
And we know, the truth is too that we've really had to keep reminding ourselves of this, because it has been, we started that work in China, and when we built Maria's Big House of Hope and that began, we didn't know that there would be an end to that. Things were very different 10 years ago in terms of relations, just geopolitical and all with China, very different than it is now, and the challenges that have come. But the thing that we're utterly convinced of is, there's been impact, we believe, even within China, in the care of children, because we were able, God allowed us to have a window of time to model something that was very foreign to China, to the culture of just how we would care for these children, believing that every life is precious in God's sight, even those that, or have profound medical needs. And we know of over 800 that were adopted or in families now thriving, still with medical needs that we want to try to continue to address. But those will go on to be impacting lives, and people who visited over the years, many went and visited there and had their lives changed. So we know the legacy will continue through that, even in the lives that will continue to be impacted because of the work that was done there specifically in those 10 years. But also now we're dreaming and excited about some new amazing things.
Yep. To sum everything up, for those who are watching today who are interested in Show Hope or getting involved in adoption or orphan care, what piece of advice do you have for them, and how can they get involved?
Oh, well, lots of ways to get involved. my piece of advice is to get involved. It is absolutely, for those of us who believe in the good news in the gospel of Jesus Christ, it's absolutely an invitation to understand in a new and profound way what it means to be enraptured in the love of Jesus, right? And to belong in his family. So I would just encourage anyone to get involved. Mom, we have a great quote we always use around Show Hope, which is, not everyone's called to adopt, but everyone's called to do something. And so what that something looks like can be anything from adopting, helping raise money for adoption, a family that that's adopting, foster care, respite care, wraparound support. There's so many opportunities. So absolutely visit showhope.org, or howtoadopt.org is another great informational website for families or yourself if you're exploring what may be involved in the process and what it could look like to jump in further. But we always wrap that up and say, before you do any of that, to begin with prayer and to start in a position of asking God what he might have for you, because we believe at Show Hope profoundly our earliest days were founded on our knees and asking God what he might be up to. And so we absolutely always ask people to start there. And so pray with us, pray for us, pray and ask God to reveal how he is leading you to go outward and onward from this place of being made aware that there's a significant need. There's 15 million children around the world who have lost both parents, and here in the United States, over 100,000 children that have had parental rights terminated in the U.S. foster care system that are waiting for permanency and family. So we have a great opportunity ahead of us to be the church in the most real sense.
Wow, I love that. Chapman family, we're so grateful for your time today. We're so grateful for your story and how you inspired us. And so thank you so much for being a special part.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.